This expansion of consciousness is attained within this formless deep of yourself. Give form to the new conception by claiming and feeling yourself to be that which you, before you entered this state, desired to be. You will find that within this formless deep of yourself, all things appear to be divinely possible. Anything that you sincerely feel yourself to be while in this expanded state becomes in time your natural expression. We must, as I have described above, switch our minds away from the consideration of the immediate problem. Neville says that instead of saying out of sight, out of mind, we really should reverse the phrase by saying out of mind, out of sight. This concept is peculiar not merely to Neville, but so far as I know, is common to all the metaphysical, modern religious movements of today. It is not a valid concept, however, on any logical or scientific ground, but it is, in effect, just this contradictory or logical phase that commends it to the metaphysicians, for they say after St. Paul that the wisdom of this world is foolishness with God, but it does not follow that this world's folly is God's wisdom. So that the modern way of dealing with any kind of problem, staring it right in the face and attempting to find out the hidden psychological meaning for its existence, is totally disregarded on the hypothetical ground that once the attention is removed from it, it must disappear. This manifestation will remain in sight only as long as it takes the force with which the conceiver I am originally endowed it to spend itself. Before suggesting that I think this procedure is highly illogical and baseless, I ought to state that I am very much in sympathy with a great deal of the content of mysticism. I am also well aware of the limitations and inadequacy of the thinking principle, and that the series of a higher or different faculty must be called upon to lead us out of the maze into which the use of the mind alone will land us. Nonetheless, the conscious thinking self has a definite role to play, and it remains for us to extend the field of its operations so that ultimately may include within its sphere most of what here also was called unconscious. The idea of out of mind, out of sight is one of those common metaphysical fallacies which on the surface sounds so penetrating and seems so true. To get something out of mind is surely to eliminate it from sight. But there is no indication that the mental content thus disposed of has actually been eliminated altogether. We may not be aware of it, but once an ostrich has buried its head in the sand, it too is totally unaware of anything that may be in its vicinity. Such reasoning as this was valid in the days before deep psychology came into being, when it was really thought that to take one's mind off certain thoughts and feelings really destroyed them. Nowadays, however, we know that people can so handle various emotions and ideas as to become totally unconscious of them. We may deny, consequently, that we ever entertained such thoughts and feelings. We have repressed them utterly, that is to say, forcibly forgotten them. So severe and intense is the repression and forgetting that many of us really and truly believe that we never had them. On the other hand, though, these thoughts and memories are now unconscious. They are no less realities than if they were fully present in the conscious mind. In fact, they are not only present and real, but a very great deal more potent, sometimes disagreeably so. They have been hidden in the darkness of the unconscious levels of the psyche, which is the kinetic factor in our lives, that which is in reality the power behind the throne. It is a machine shop of the body and mind. These repressions, rather than conscious states, are the true psychological contents that outpicture themselves in the creation of adverse social, economic, and family conditions that we loathe so much, try to eliminate from our lives. These are the dynamic conceptions which we so blindly feed to the magical self underneath. The conceiver of all things who, as a result, can only turn these conceptions into realities. Says Neville, God, your awareness, is no respecter of persons. Purely impersonal, God, this awareness of all existence, receives impressions, qualities, and attributes defining consciousness, namely your impressions. I will extend his idea by saying that the unconscious is no respecter of ideas. It is impersonal and will turn into realities whatever ideas are thrust into its sphere, good, bad, and indifferent. There is danger in turning our backs on problems, however much desirable it may appear to do so. There is entirely too much clinical evidence available today confirming that the fact that it is the whole content of repressed ideas and experiences that have become projected into the world of reality, forming our sicknesses, social problems, and all else beside. The problem confronting one is itself an outpicturing of oneself. We can learn much of ourselves about the true self within from a study of the unsolved problems confronting us. It also receives a great deal of study and meditation to stimulate us to ask why many times before we begin to use these metaphysical methods to eliminate them. Sometimes we would do better to swallow it and accept it. Bitter pill that it may be. Nasty medicine often does us more good than simply to have refused to take in it. It is an offense against our own integrity and intellectual honesty first to assume that what is present in our external world picture is but a projection of the mind, and then to ignore utterly the visible projection from within. It seems more rational before attempting to make new spiritual images within to inquire why previous pictures were created that would produce such untoward effects that displeases us so. What meaning have they? What is the significance of this problem, this environment, this situation? Meaning there must be, otherwise the whole structure of our existence falls around us like an inchoate mass of cards. Our spiritual work hence must be so to enlarge our understanding of life and of ourselves that we divine a meaning in every single and isolated phenomenon. As a Unity leader, Charles Fillmore writes in his book Christian Healing, the material forms that we see about us are the chalk marks of a mighty problem being outworked by the one mind. To comprehend that problem and to catch a slight glimpse of its meaning, we must grasp the ideas that the chalk marks represent. This is what we mean by studying mind, back of nature. Man is mind, and he is capable of comprehending the plan and the detailed ideas of the supreme mind. I propose this technical consideration of ignoring facts or denying them because they are only reflections of inner conceptions which to conceive of all things has thrust into the outer world. Neville also gives us a commentary upon one of the little stories in the Bible. He calls out attention to the book of Numbers, where it is said that there were giants in the land, and we were in our own sight as grasshoppers, and we were in their sight as grasshoppers. Explaining that in the light of this particular system, he says, "Today is the day, the eternal now, when conditions in the world have attained the appearance of giants. The unemployed, the armies of the enemy, business competition, etc. are the giants which make you feel yourself to be a helpless grasshopper. We are told we were first in our own sights helpless grasshoppers, and because of this conception of ourselves, we were to the enemy helpless grasshoppers. We can be to others only that which we are to ourselves. Therefore, as we revalue ourselves and begin to feel ourselves to be the giants, center of power, we automatically change our relationship to the giants, reducing these former monsters to their true place, making them appear to be the helpless grasshoppers. Convincing as this sound, at first sight, unfortunately, it is not altogether as true as it sounds. I know men who are considered by the world to be very great men. They have achieved much, having position and power and money, yet within themselves they are consumed by a gnawing inferiority, feeling themselves the helpless grasshoppers of which Numbers speaks. However, no one knows it. No one knows or even suspects their helplessness, their internal conflict, their never-ending doubt and self-torture. They and they only are aware of it. It goes on all through the hours of the day, consuming in their dreams at night, but never it is suspected even for one moment by their friends, their most intimate friends and colleagues. It is a secret that none must ever share. Never does the world divine it because they never divulge it. Like many other public speakers, even successful actors, I'm sure Neville has frequently, especially at the beginning of his public career, felt considerably nervous and frightened just prior to delivering a lecture. So far as the audience was concerned, he appeared not in the least frightened or nervous, but calm, collected, and poised. I myself have experienced this so many times that it is no longer funny. And a friend of mine who has delivered thousands of lectures, including radio addresses, invariably becomes nervous and fearful to the extent that his psychological functions are temporarily interfered with. Yet he is successful and he is no grasper to the world. However, much of one he may at times seem to be himself. Some even consider him one of the giants. Things are not always what they seem. It is not always true that we can be to others what we are to ourselves. I may be worthless and valueless to myself, yet of inestimable worth to hundreds of and thousands of people. Life cannot be reduced to a few simple formula capable of application to the world at large. Nor is it altogether true that as we evaluate ourselves anew and feel ourselves to be giants, do we actually become giants? Many a braggart and egoist has strutted like turkey cock about the world, even in this small familiar sphere of our own lives, telling us of his own importance and what a giant he is. This is impressed upon us daily, almost hourly, yet all we feel about the evaluation of himself is sorrow and pity for such poor fool. Nevertheless, Neville's underlying idea is essentially correct, but there's a misunderstanding of levels upon which we must apply his principles. His system demands, I have suggested above, a better definition of terms, a more exact usage of words. It is not our conscious evaluation of ourselves which means very much. It is what we feel about ourselves deep down in our hearts, and that, unfortunately, is not known to most of us. What we feel in the unconscious side of the psyche, what Neville calls our awareness of being, that is what people will feel about us. I may feel a warm unconsciously, but no matter how much I may consciously overcompensate for this unconscious inferiority and suggest that I am a giant, the world will know me for a worm. On the other hand, while my conscious evaluation of myself may be very low, my real and unconscious appreciation of myself, as revealed, for example, in dream, may be horrific, may be terrific, in which event, sooner or later, the unconscious view will win out and I will actually become to myself and to the world one of the giants. Those around me in my environment may then feel that I am potentially more than I express, and may really say of me that he is a gigantic personality if he could express himself, as one day he will.